Hi folks, and welcome back to another fly tying tutorial. With many of the lakes around the UK frozen over, there's still a chance of some sport on the rivers. So what I'm going to show you today is a really heavy bug for grayling. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook and device then is a Hanak H490 barbless hook. This one's at size 10, it's on a heavy wire and it's finished in black nickel. Now I've coupled that with a 4.6mm tungsten bead in copper, and the thread I'm going to be using today is from Simplify. It's the Nano Silk. This one's at 1000D or 6/0 if you like, and as you can see it's in white. As always with the Nano Silks, what we want to do is get some super glue onto the shank of the hook. If you just use wax, what tends to happen is it just starts sliding and slipping all over the place, and we don't want that. So I want to get my Nano Silk all the way up that super glue, up to near the end of the hook where I can take away my rat's tail. And what I want to do next is come all the way up in open turns to the bead. Now you don't have to do this stage, but I like to have my bead secured over the bend in the hook. I don't like it moving about too much, and it also helps when I'm building my taper into the body later on in the tying process. So getting that lump of thread up in behind the bead just helps me out there. Now I'm just going to work on that taper a little bit at this point, and the next thing I want to do is I'm going to create a dubbing loop. So I've taken off quite a bit of thread here, as you can see. I'm going to come up and I want to capture that all the way along the shank. And all the time I'm working this thread, I'm working towards making a taper in the body here. Now, what I'm going to do next is just hook that loop over my handle on my vise. Next then I'm going to add some of this stuff. This is Mirage tinsel. It's 0.8 or 132, and this one's the iris blue. Really nice shade. I'm going to capture that in just on my side, take it all the way down to the tail end of my fly, and then what I'm going to do again, I'm going to work that taper, just getting the right shape that I want for this bug, all the way up to the top. Once I'm happy that's in place, I can bring my tinsel up. Now something you can do here if you want to be bulletproof is before you start wrapping the tinsel, as I have done, you can put a little bit of super glue down, and that just secures the whole thing in. Now I'm all about substituting different materials to make things work. Use what you've got, big believer in that, but on this occasion you do need white thread underneath. It makes a difference to the fly at the end of the day, so use white. If you haven't got Nano Silk, white thread that you can split will do. So I brought that all the way at the top. I'm going to get a couple of turns in to hold it into place, a couple of turns in front of my material, and then I can come in with my scissors and just take that away. Now next, what I'm going to put in the dubbing loop is from Trout Stalkers. Now this is Bram Olive Possum. It's a custom mix, and I'm going to take a little bit out the packet here. You don't need very much, is what I would say, depending on what effect you want to achieve. But what I'm doing is I'm just easing it all out, trying to get it nice and sparse. And once I've got it sparse like that, I can put it into a clip, like so. Just get that other end in. And then I'll get my dubbing loop spinner and insert it into the clip. Now I'm not I'm not a huge fan of dubbing loops. I much prefer to split the thread, but for this particular fly, the dubbing loop just seems to work very well. Although I've been very sparse with my materials, you can still see it's still quite thick. So what I want to do is come in with my fingers and thin that out even more. It's a lovely material, this. It's really thin. It's going to give me plenty of mobility as long as I keep it nice and thin. So I've done that. I'm going to bring it over, and again I'm going to rest it behind my wheel. Now what I'm going to do next is add some UV resin to my body, which might seem a bit strange, but all will become clear as we progress with the tying. Don't worry if you get a few hairs stuck in this. It's going to make absolutely no difference whatsoever. So I've got that body coated with resin. I'm just going to give this another spin up. It tends to just unwrap while you're doing this stage. And I'm going to put 2 or 3 spare turns into the front here. And then I'm going to use the rotary function on my vise. And you can see some of the resin pooling there. Don't be overly worried about it. And then what I'm doing is effectively I'm ribbing the fly with my dubbing loop. And that's going to give the body a really nice feel to it. At the end I'll get a couple of extra turns in, and then I'm going to come over with my silk and capture that in. Once I'm sure I've got hold of it, I'll get a couple of turns onto it, a couple of turns in front, and then I can come in and remove my excess. Next we've got to cure off the UV, and what the UV resin will do is hold that rib into place. Now you've got to give it a really good amount of UV light. Just make sure it's cured properly. As you can see, I don't know how well the camera will pick up the colours of this, but it's got a kind of yellow hue to it under the UV light. And I'm happy enough with that. Now, last but not least, I'm going to come in with my dubbing brush, holding onto my thread, and just bring them materials back out the way, like so. And once I'm happy they're back, next thing I'm going to do is I've got a piece of CDC here. This is just from one of my shooting friends. A very small feather, you can see. Again, I'm going to come in with my clip and catch that into place, and then I can just come in with my scissors and remove the stem. Just remove the stem, leaving enough for me to catch in. Now this time I can do what I prefer to do when I want to make a loop, and that's split my thread. And with the 1000D, or the 6/0 if you like, it's fairly easy. So I've cut that in. I'm going to come in with my clip and capture in that CDC. Then I can spin that up. Now, yeah, it might seem a bit strange using CDC on what's obviously a bomb for going into deep holes after the bigger grayling. But what happens with CDC is it captures in little air bubbles, and that can be really enticing. It makes it give it a lot more lifelike look to the fly pattern, if you like. Now, obviously after several swims, it will eventually get sodden, but you can recover it with some Hunt's dust and it'll be good as new. So just to finish off on this one then, I'm going to come in with some super glue onto my silk. Grab my whip finish tool. Slick everything back out the way. And then I'm going to pull tight to just bury that silk under the bead there. Now, this may look like a hot mess, but you stick this in a deep hole on the river and you never know what you might pick up. It might be that magical £3 grayling that you've been always after. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy this video, why not check out the Hanak International Grayling Festival, which is on your screen now.